Hey everyone, I'm Samyak Agarkar and welcome to Agarkar Media Academy. This is the 21st tutorial in Blender tutorial series for beginners. So in the last few tutorials we have seen how to edit objects and how to create awesome 3D models. We also saw in the last tutorial transformation, orientation, snapping, pivot point and proportional editing, right? So from this tutorial onwards we are going to look at some in-depth knowledge of shading panel. We have already seen shading panel wherein we downloaded a PBR texture from internet and we just used the PBR texture on our 3D object to give it a texture and coloring, right? But in this video, we are going to look at shading in an entirely different perspective. There are some inherent ways of creating awesome textures inside of Blender without using any textures from outside. So just Blender itself gives some, it calculates. Yeah, it's raining outside, so you can hear the thunder. But yeah, so Blender gives some inherent options of creating some mathematical options of creating awesome textures, which are generated actually by means of some mathematical functions, right? So we can use them to create awesome 3D textures inside of Blender. So let's look at it in this video. So we are again right now in the shading in the 3D model, and we are just going to give some shading to this default cube only. So let's go to the shading panel. Inside of shading panel we are familiar with this setup or workspace wherein this is our 3D, which is in material preview mode or look dev mode, and here we have the node editor where we can edit the nodes or where we can add the nodes. Now in the last tutorial where we saw shading, there what we did was we downloaded a PBR texture from internet and we just joined the texture to here and then used the node wrangler add-on to give it a mapping, and then we just changed the orientation and rotation and scale of the textures onto the 3D model. But right now what we are going to do is we are not going to use the outside textures, right? We are just going to use the textures provided directly by the Blender. So let's look at it. What are the textures? Shift A to add a new node, or you can just here go for add. Shift A or Shift A here, and here we can see the shaders that are possible. Add shaders is to add two shaders. Diffuse shader is the color shader. Emission to emit light. Glass BSDF we can use directly to give it a glass-like color, a glass-like model. So if you want to create glass, you can just bring in this here and you can just directly go to surface. We don't want the principal PSDF also, and this is glass. Now of course you may say there is no reflection, there is no transmission of light. That is because transmission is not inherently supported in EV renderer. So what you need to go is go to the render properties, and here you just need to select cycles. So as soon as you select cycles, just give it a second, and of course we are in the look dev mode or material preview mode. We need to go to rendered mode, so Z and this one. So now here you can see the glass material. Of course you cannot see anything right now because there is nothing to look at. So if you just add a plane and we just bring it somewhat down like this, so now here you can see the glass shader in action. So you can see the translucence and everything that works in the glass. These noise is something called as acoustics, and this happens in cycles render. This doesn't happen in EV render. This just happens in cycles render because cycles just calculates the transmission, and you might have seen color that when it comes just when light just hits the glass, it just accumulates at some places. So that is some it is trying to do here. So here you can see the acoustics of light happening. Now this IOR is incidence of refraction. So refraction of the glass can be changed from here. So for what you just need to for different materials, for different types of glasses the IOR is different. So you just need to look up on the net to know the IOR of whatever that you are trying to add. I think for water it's 1.33. I'm not very sure, but I think it's 1.33. I'm not very sure. You can just hit up on Google and just search the IORs for different materials. So this is a glass shader. This is right now white. We can just we can just change the color of the glass from here, right? Let's delete it. Let's look at some other shaders that are available. So we have seen emission. Glossy is for glossiness. If you want something to be very glossy, then this is the glossiness. I can just turn down the roughness to make it the smoothest. So mirrors are very good glossy materials. So if you want a mirror, then you can just use glossy BSDF. Some kind of roughness should be there. There is no material which is perfectly smooth, but of course that is now up to you. It has got all the options for you to look up and use, and you can use it whatever the way you want, right? Let's look at some other shaders. We saw the glossy. There is hair BSDF, but we are not going to look at it just right now. Hold out mix shader is to mix two shaders. Principal BSDF is this one, and then we have principled hair BSDF. So if you are working with hairs for characters, then at that time you can use the principled hair BSDF. Principled volume is a volume texture. You don't need to hit up to a surface, because surface is not volume. We just need to put a volume to volume, and this is what it looks like. So you can see right now there is no texture on the surface of the model, but it's inside of the model. So some dust particle like structure can be done from the principled volume. Of course you can change the color of the dust. Let's say uh, this color I want for the dust. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring it right here so that we can see it. I'm just bringing the light right here. So here you can see that it is not really the surface that is having a texture, but the inside of the object is having some uh, texture, or it's not even texture, it's volume basically. And then there are some different things, different options right here which you can just um, try and look out for and see what's actually happening right there, right? So there are some different, so if we want a glowing type of um atmosphere, then you can use this emission strength and stuff like that. And there are so many different things that are possible here. So if you want really small dust, then you can use a very low density. It will just give some realistic looks to whatever that you are looking at. So this is what our principled volume shader is. Let's look at some other things. Principal volume we saw. Refraction BSDF is used for refraction only. So if you just look at the if you just hook it up to the surface, you can see the refraction going on, right? And if it is on the volume, it basically makes no sense, but on the surface it gives some refraction. So you can just turn in and turn down the refraction in the way you want, and then there's of course IOR, which you can change the way you want it to. You can just look up on the Google to search for IORs of different materials. Then let's look at subsurface scattering. So subsurface scattering basically is subsurface scattering. The subsurface scattering is very good. As you can see just right now here, it's good for skin, because it's some level of transmission that occurs, but not everything is being transmitted. So that is subsurface scattering. It's really good for skin. And as you can see already, that the color has already been set as the skin color, because that is what actually it means. Here you can see at the edges, even if right now of course you cannot see, but if I just use this, let me just turn on the light, and if you can see right now, my hand my finger basically scatters light, red light, right now you cannot see any light being scattered, but as soon as I put it onto a light source, then you can see that my finger is basically subscattering the light in reddish color, right? So that is the exact use of subsurface scattering. Let me just turn off this light. Yeah, so that is the use of this subsurface scattering. So of course then you can change the scale and stuff like that, and there are so many options that you can use, but that is it. That is what this is all about, right? Then let's look at some other materials. This is then a toon BSDF. So if you want some toonish looking colors, then this is really good, because now basically toon BSDF is used for cartoons. Because now here you can see, if I had this principled BSDF just right here, you can see the texturing here itself. There's some grading happening. Why? On this face there is some grading happening. This part is brighter and this part is lighter, right? Why? Because darker, or why? Because the light source is here, and as this part is away from the light, this is going to be darker and this is going to be brighter. But in the toon BSDF, as we can see in the cartoons, it is not the case. Cartoons, every face has just one single color, so that is why we have just one single color across the face. Here you can see that. If I just again plug in the principled BSDF, here you can see what differences there are in the toon BSDF. So basically this is used for cartoonish looking things, cartoonish looking. Here you can see the shading can be done in some cartoonish way. So that is used for you got the point, right? This is just about trying up different things and just understanding what's actually happening. Let's look at some other. Translucent is translucency. So if I just give it to the face, it's not going to worry too much, but basically it's translucent. So translucent is, it can you can see objects uh, beyond it, but not too much. I think it works best in volume, because in the volume here you have some transparency, which is like so you got the point. Basically translucent you will not be using by itself. It is always used with a mixed BSDF with some other parameters. Transparent is the same. Transparent is transparency. It will be completely transparent, right? Then we have velvet BSDF. If you want some velvetish look, then velvet BSDF is used. You can see some velvetish effect is there on here, right? So this is the use of velvet BSDF. Then we look at volume absorption. Volume absorption is it, of course, when it says volume, you cannot use it on surface. You can just use it on volume. So we saw one another volume BSDF, that was principled volume. So this and this is almost same, just that principled volume has all the parameters at once, and volume absorption has just one parameter of absorption. Here you saw absorption color, so that is it. The same is being applied here. It absorbs the colors. And then again volume scatterer is also the same of like principled BSDF, principled volume BSDF, just that this is just one single node here, and this has got all the other parameters in one place, right? Let's read this also, and I think this is it. We saw everything in the shader panel, and this is it for this video. In the next video we are going to just look up at other things that we can do in the node editor and basically in the shading panel, so that we can have different shading to our objects. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't yet subscribed to this YouTube channel, please do subscribe. And if you have any queries or suggestions or comments, please comment down in the comment section below. Share this video with your friends and family so that they can also learn to create awesome 3D animations and 3D models. See you in the next tutorial. Till then, keep smiling and keep learning.